everybody. So today I wanted to make a video going over a little bit of what it's like to look for a source on Google and some of that process. And I think the best way to really do that is to show you, to actually look at some of the articles that I've pulled up here. So the topic I'm going to be looking into is fake news. And you can see I've got lots of different searches already. I can search fake news and it's Google, so I can search, is fake news a problem? I can ask a question. I can do all kinds of things. One of the things you guys might be noticing is that I have hit on a lot of articles. Some of them are up here, open. Not all of them are great. Some of them I'm not even going to use in the examples. The reason I'm telling you this is because when you search for something on Google, that's fine. You're out there looking for information. Google is where most of us get our information. It's where we go when we have a question or some other search engine. I know some people use Bing. When you are looking for information, you typically start at a search engine, and that's a fine place to start. Another really good place to look is library databases. So I'm going to link a video about using two of the most popular ones that Dell Tech has subscriptions to. So you can watch that to learn a little bit more about searching in databases. In this, I'm just going to focus on what do you do to find good information on regular old Google. Instead of just hitting the top three, you can see that I opened the top 3 hits. And of the top 3 hits, I think maybe one of these is going to be useful. One problem that students typically encounter is that they're not really paying attention to the genre. When you go to a website, you could be looking at anything. So you need to be a good critical thinker who uses like their meta view of what they're looking at to say, hey, is this the kind of source I want to be getting information from? So I'm just going to go through some of the tabs and talk through some of the process about which of these sources are okay and which I'm probably not even going to begin to evaluate, so that I can show you how I would narrow down the list. So the first article that we have right here is how to spot fake news. Okay, pull it up, look at it. It's got authors. It's a little bit old, so that might be a bit of a red flag. We're going to have to look at that. What else do we see? It has hyperlinks. I'm going to click them. Do they go somewhere? Well, that one just goes back to its own. Oh, whoops. That goes back to its own. This is an outside source on Snopes. Okay, so there are some things included here. There are some outside sources. List of Pulitzer Prizes. There are some hyperlinks, like this is a hyperlink that takes us to CNN Business. Okay, so there are some outside sources here. I'm not going to rule this out as an option, and I'll tell you another reason why, because I saw up here, it's a .org, which is a little more trustworthy, and it's a project from the Annenberg Public Policy Center. Now, I trust the Annenberg Public Policy Center. If you don't know what it is, or if you don't know if you trust it, Google it. And if you're like, oh, this seems to be pretty reputable, then keep this article in the running. If the Annenberg Public Policy Center turns out to be something that seems a little bit shady, then don't keep it in the running. That depends on you. If you know, like, hey, this is from the New York Times, and I typically trust the New York Times, you don't got to Google the New York Times. If you're not familiar with the New York Times, then you need to use your critical thinking and say, maybe I should look into this publication. What is fake news? Sounds like a promising source. Oh, look at this though. This is coming from a university and not in a good way. Why? Because this is more of an infographic specifically geared towards students at Cornell University for dealing with misinformation. If you quote something from this article, this would be like quoting something from, I don't know, like the APA style manual. You don't want to include that. That's not a great source for information. This is not a source that you would want to use. It is more, the genre of this is more instructional for educational purposes. We're looking for information. I'm going to close that. Oh, here we have fake news is not simply false information, a concept, explication, and taxonomy of online content. This is an example of an academic article. You have stumbled upon an academic article online. How do we know? Because it has this thing called a DOI, which is a number that's specific to online articles. There's an abstract. Lots of authors. It's in a journal. So this could work, but this isn't what you might consider your typical Google source. If you scroll down, you can see that the whole PDF is available. If you find something that looks like this and all you can find is just the abstract, just a couple paragraphs of the abstract, that's not enough. You can't quote or use as a source an abstract of an academic article that you found online. You need the whole article. So I could leave this up or I could close it. I don't know that I really want to get into the explication and taxonomy of online content. It seems a little highfalutin. I think maybe I'm just going to take my chances and go look in a database. So I'm going to close this. Here we have an article called Majority of Fake News Consumers See Fake News is a Big Problem Today. It tells us it's an article. We've got pictures of authors. This all seems pretty trustworthy. Read the first line. What can companies do to allay concerns about fake news? Trust building and preparing for the future may be key. That's weird. I'm trying to figure out information in general, and it's talking about companies. What kind of site is this? Oh, It provides services like tax services, consulting services, risk of financial advisory, audit assurance. All this stuff means that this is probably a website that is geared towards selling things to businesses. That's not going to give us the information we want. I had no idea what Deloitte was until I looked into it. It's not like I was born with the knowledge that Deloitte wasn't trustworthy. I just had to use my critical thinking to figure out maybe this isn't the source for me. Okay, so here's a good example. We can look up The Atlantic. It's an American magazine and multi-platform publisher. Looks like it's a fairly well-known, American magazine, multi-platform publisher, founded in 1857 in Boston. Literary and cultural magazine. All right, this seems relatively trustworthy. Let's go back to it. Okay. Got some sources, got some hyperlinks, because remember that hyperlinks are sources in an online article typically. Some charts. It's looking pretty good. But I do see one red flag. The word ideas tends to mean that you're dealing with an opinion-based article, an op-ed, a letter to the editor. If you find an article that starts with ideas, it's something that you might want to stay away from when you're in the informational stage. I'm not saying that this person doesn't have great ideas or terrible ideas. I don't know. I haven't read the article. But the fact that it says ideas up here is a tip-off that maybe this isn't what we're looking for in our informational fact-gathering stage. So I'm going to close it. Okay. Then I've got this, America's Growing Fake News Problem in One Chart. Don't know much about Vox, so maybe I should Google it. It's got a tweet embedded in it, so I don't know. I mean, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Got a lot of ads, so I'll leave it up here. And the reason that I'm leaving it up here is because I do happen to already trust Vox as a source. I've already looked through Vox. I've already found it trustworthy. I think it does a good job citing outside sources, but I'm not going to get involved. And you can see right here, it is hitting us up for money, but lots of places that do free mass publications do that. So I'm not going to be too worried about that. And then that's back to our Google search. So I have 2 articles here that I'm willing to look into. And this is where I would start the evaluation process. I would pick one of them and I would say, you know what? I like the information. I'd read it. I like the information in this one. This is the one I'm going to evaluate. And then you would go through the process of actually evaluating it to see if it's good. But you can see that even before you get to the evaluation stage, there's lots of things you can do to eliminate information that may not be suited to your purpose. And that's what you're going to have to do. I cannot give you an easy formula. I cannot say type this in plus this, count down to the 3rd hit, there's your source. You're going to have to do some digging, some evaluating, some critical thinking.